Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Martin Reimann. I'm an associate professor at this beautiful university, and I have the pleasure to be the host of today's event, which is the public seminar of Dr. Temple Grandin. And for those of you who are joining online, I know there are many of you there, welcome to you as well. We're gathered today because we're hearing from a truly extraordinary thinker whose work has transformed agricultural business, including livestock welfare and management, and whose work has also deepened how we think about autism and neurodiversity, and whose work has challenged us to think with greater clarity about the world, especially with visual clarity, as Temple told me yesterday. So this is an impressive achievement, especially since most of us would consider it a victory just to transform a committee meeting, right, or a class. Today's event brings together several parts of our University of Arizona community, including business, veterinary medicine, veterinary sciences, agriculture, public health, and many more. And this reflects exactly the kind of conversation a university should create space for. A space for thoughtful, practically relevant, and deeply human conversations. So thank you all for being here. I also want to thank the Center for Management Innovations in Healthcare and its director, Dr. Grandin, as well as the student assistants and staff who made this event possible. Thank you very much. After this talk, we'll have a light refreshment for you available, so please stick around and meet and mingle and network. And at this time, I'd like to have you join me in welcoming our Dean, Dr. Karthik Kanan of the Eller College of Management, who will offer a few opening remarks, and then the Associate Dean for Research of the College for Veterinary Medicine, Dr. Maggie O'Hare, will introduce our speaker. Karthik, welcome.
Thank you, Martin. It's a wonderful place, like Martin mentioned. This, in particular, this university is great, this building is great, and it's also great to see many Eller folks in the health sciences building. We also have, looks like we have some people who have come here during their spring break and absorbing it all in like a sponge. But in any case, it's my great pleasure to welcome, on behalf of Eller College of Management, you all, to this wonderful occasion and to introduce a remarkable innovator, Dr. Temple Grandin. I'm sure you're here because you know what impact she's made. She has transformed the way the global food industry thinks about animals, operations, and responsibility. She's proved that when we treat animals humanely, we also build safer workplaces, more efficient operations, and stronger and more resilient businesses. She's helped introduce objective auditing standards for animal welfare that reshaped industry practices. What gets measured, gets managed kind of a practice applies not only to revenue and costs, but also to how animals are treated and how consumers trust a brand. Her career is a masterclass in turning ethical conviction into a competitive advantage. And many of you know this, and I would still reiterate this in any case. Dr. Grandin's influence extends beyond the stockyard. She's a person with autism and she's embraced it. She has changed the way we think about neurodiversity, learning, and human potential. For our students and faculty, her story is a powerful reminder that some of the most original insights in management and in medicine come from voices that see the world differently. When you step back and look at the impact she's had, you can frame this as a cross-disciplinary way of thinking. And Martin highlighted this also. And this is what Eller is also very, very proud of. We have a program in healthcare management. We are constantly thinking about collaboration with engineering, with business, with medicine, etc. And cross-disciplinary partnerships is what our college aspires to foster as we prepare leaders as well. So I want to again welcome you, Dr. Grandin, to this wonderful place. Now I'm going to turn over the podium to another friend of mine. It's my pleasure to invite my colleague, Maggie O'Hare, from the College of Veterinary Medicine, to share a few words from a veterinary medicine perspective as well.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. So I am delighted to be here representing our College of Veterinary Medicine, where our mission is to advance animal health, welfare, and the human-animal bond. And today, I have the honor of introducing Dr. Temple Grandin. If you're sitting in this room, I'm guessing you don't need to hear an introduction and that you know very well who she is and the many wonderful things she's done. But being here today, I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate some of those achievements together. So Dr. Grandin is a professor of animal science at Colorado State University. She has spent decades transforming how we understand animal cognition, welfare, and behavior, and her pioneering work has revolutionized livestock handling practices. Today, her humane handling system designs are used with nearly half of all cattle in North America. She has been named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people and has been the subject of the HBO film Temple Grandin, which won 7 Emmy Awards. She's authored hundreds of scientific and industry publications, spoken to audiences around the world, and one of my personal favorite quotes from her came from a TEDx talk that she gave, and she said, "The world needs all kinds of minds." So today we have a huge privilege here in this room to be able to listen to her and hear about her pioneering work that has shaped both science and society. Everyone I've asked about coming to this today said it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So please join me in welcoming the one, the only, Dr. Temple Grandin.
Well, it's great to be here today, and I was asked today to give the business version rather than the veterinary version of how we need different kinds of minds. And this is my book on visual thinking. I'm going to talk about some of the scientific research on different ways that people think, how they solve problems, and how we need the different kinds of minds. And the first step is you have to realize that people think differently. I thought everybody thought in pictures the way I think. And if you watch the HBO movie, it shows exactly how I think in pictures. I thought everybody thought that way. And I was shocked when I was in my late 30s. I got the first inkling that not everybody thought in pictures. And I'm going to show some of the research. It's in my book, Visual Thinking. Now, I noticed details. They have this sign at the Denver airport, and most people don't see what's funny about this sign. Take a look at the boarding pass. Take a close look at the boarding pass. Area 51, gate A51, a beaming time of 2 seconds. Yeah, that's not your usual flight. Gate A51, which the airport has. I went to Nashville out of that gate one time. Now, in my work with animal behavior, being a visual thinker really helped me, because I looked at what cattle were seeing, and cattle would balk at a reflection. They refused to go through little things they were seeing, and people thought it was totally weird. And I did that at the feed yards right here in Arizona. I started in Arizona. My aunt's ranch, where I got started in animal behavior, was right next to Fort Huachuca, and we used to go through the fort when we went shopping in Sierra Vista. And then I get asked, what's my favorite animal? Herefords ruled in the 60s and 70s. So they're still my favorite breed of cattle. But it was obvious to look at what the cattle were seeing. And I didn't really understand why that was so, unique, because other people think more in words. And the thing I'm very concerned about today, because visual thinking is very much involved in clinical skills, both in human and veterinary medicine. I'm very concerned about losing clinical skills. I talked to two friends of mine. They're in their 70s. That's why I don't jump up on the thing here. I'll use the ramp. I'm not going to jump off of that thing either. I don't want to break my leg jumping off of there. I'm losing clinical skills. They have heart issues. And the young heart doctors don't use a stethoscope anymore. Now you see, a stethoscope is sensory-based. To understand an animal, it lives in a sensory-based world, not a word-based world. That's the first thing you have to get. One of my big pet peeves is that people that jerk the dog away from the tree and don't let it smell the tree where other dogs have left their calling cards there. But clinical skills is sensory-based. You know, right now our educational system is going more mathematical-based and word-based. And I discuss this in my visual thinking book. In fact, I'm very concerned that visual thinkers like me, who cannot do higher math, you're going to screen us out. And you need us. Need us. I was at the Charlotte airport just the other day, and a veterinarian came up to me, and we had lunch together. She told me a horror story that a vet came out of a major school and didn't know how to spay a dog. This is 3 days ago. I'm not going to say where it was. Charlotte Airport's a major hub. They come in from all different places. Didn't know how to spay a dog. Yeah, like, really? You've got to be kidding. They ought to have a rotation at an animal shelter. Start out with neutering a cat, because that's super simple. Now, here's an example of just seeing a reflection that could make the animals refuse to go through this chute. And then 2 hours later, that reflection may be gone. A visual thinker also sees risk. Now, they kind of made this water holder here slanted. Still manages to work, but I don't want to put the water up here next to the laptop. That's an example of seeing risk, a very, very simple example. But 2 hours later, this reflection's gone, and then the cattle are moving easily. Yeah, I see that. The non-visual thinker doesn't see it. There's 3 different types of thinking. And in my book, Visual Thinking, and it's unfortunate we didn't get books here today, that was kind of a mess up in the communication. There's research that shows that an object visualizer like me, who thinks in pictures, is very different than a mathematical thinker who thinks in patterns. With all these math requirements, we have a really cool exhibit in Denver where you can watch them spay cats and dogs. And then you can look through the window, it has a camera, it looks right down to the middle of a spay. And I watch that and I go, what does algebra and calculus have to do with spaying this animal or doing some other surgery on this animal? It has nothing to do with it. And the problem is, if we have that weed out, we're going to end up getting rid of a lot of good veterinarians. We're also going to get rid of a lot of good people on equipment. Since I've got the business version of my talk, I'll be talking more about the equipment side of things. We're screening out some of the best equipment builders and some of the best veterinarians. I don't know if I could pass high school today. I have never passed algebra. And how did I get through college? Because thank goodness back in the 60s, it was mostly statistics. And with a bunch of tutoring, I got through it. I majored in psychology to dodge the math classes. I had to drop physics. And then I discovered all of these wonderful people working in shops, barely graduated from high school, but they could really design equipment. And these people are retiring out. This is the object visualizer. That's me. Terrible at high abstract math. Inventing mechanical equipment. They're going to be the one that's going to go, I saw a cat like this 5 years ago. I'm pretty sure it has this. We do one test to confirm. I talked to a dairy practice up in Quebec probably just about 3 years ago. And their very best dairy veterinarian can figure out all the weird cows, had a very difficult time passing the math stuff. And there was the best veterinarian in the practice for cows with weird stuff wrong with them. So mechanical, art, photography, working with animals, trades, that all goes together. We need these people. And we need them really badly, and we're screening them out. And I have a whole chapter in visual thinking on this. I don't know if I could survive today's educational system. But then I discovered this wonderful world of industrial process equipment. No degree required. Just don't touch the structural on the building and don't mess with electrical, and you can do just about everything else. Okay, we need people to fix things. I'm finding broken stuff all over the place. A visual thinker can also see problems. We had a power failure yesterday at the airport. It was a real mess. Shut the train down. And I don't know why only one section of Concourse B was shut down. I was sitting in it, and my phone stopped working. And then I looked out on the ramp, and there was 3 guys there messing with phones. I don't think their phones worked. They were on the ramp right under the window. Then I go to the airplane cleaners. They couldn't get on the plane because the jet bridge was off. And they said, the airplane cleaner said, the Wi-Fi's down. I walked down to the site 20 feet into where the power was on, and my phone worked. I'm going, what if the power went out in the entire airport and none of the phones worked? That's going to be very serious. We're dependent on a cell phone booster. This is the kind of thing I'm very concerned about. It's something that the visual thinker sees. We better have some cell phone boosters on a generator. Be a little bitty generator. They don't take very much power. But that's an example of seeing a problem. This is a problem. They said a substation went out. I can understand the train going down. But why was some of the power on in the airport? How is it wired? This is very weird. This was yesterday. The plane was an hour late because the jet bridge didn't function. Then it came back on. Big mess. Now, I wanted to do aerospace, but I couldn't do it because of the math. Well, I'm a big NASA fan, so here's the old 1960s mission control all refurbished, right down to big ashtrays full of butts, because it was a smoke-filled room. The elevator was broken. I'm finding places where escalators break all the time, and the little yellow panels they put up that block people out of it, they don't put those away. They just fold them up and lean them against the wall, because they're going to have to use them again. Now, the kind of person that I'm going to want working in my factory maintenance department, or maybe keep your anesthesia machines going, is the guy that can look at, or girl that can look at a box of parts and see flowers. This was made in an autistic program teaching welding. But I'm concerned if we require higher math for a factory maintenance position, you're going to screen out the weird guy in the shop that can fix everything. These people are gone. We've got a real problem. They're playing video games in the basement. I'll tell you how to get these autistic kids off the video games. Mechanical stuff. I just went to a brand new beef plant. They had a really nice hide puller, but the hydraulics was garbage. So where would I find somebody to fix the hydraulics? I think I'm going to go down to the car hopping club. Yeah, you look that up and you find out what car hopping is. You've got to really know hydraulics for that. Probably didn't pass high school, but I'm going to have him get decent hydraulics on this brand new plant equipment that I just saw very recently. Now here's your mathematician. Our educational system values the mathematician and the word thinking. Now mechanical thinking is a merit-based skill. In fact, the Army values it. I had an interesting conversation with an off-duty flight attendant. She had flunked out of college because she couldn't do algebra. She went to the Army. They tested her for mechanical ability. She aced it. And they said, you can fix this airplane over here or that one over there. But you're going to be fixing airplanes. And we recently had an engine with 2 parts installed wrong, taxi up to one of the gates at the Denver airport and catch on fire. 2 parts were installed wrong. I'll tell you who I want working on the airplane engine that I'm going to fly with tomorrow. I want that autistic mechanic, maybe barely graduated from high school. That person's going to put that engine together correctly, because I worked with those people. So your spatial visualizer, your mathematician, chemistry, computer programming, oh man, computer programming, entry-level positions, Chat and Claude have taken that over. Chemistry and physics, music and math go together, and art and mechanical go together. And clinical skills, I need to put that in there with it. And they're atrocious in veterinary medicine now with the young people. They're atrocious in human medicine too. We're not valuing those skills. Also, we don't do a very good job of developing our math kids. You have a kid that's super good at math, you need to move them ahead. Don't make them bored. They get in trouble when they get bored. And then you have the verbal thinker, writers, marketing. Okay, the marketing people invited me to be here. So how am I going to market something? Okay, we were talking about some phone app. Okay, I got to find out, first of all, what the phone app actually does before I can figure out how to market it. Language is not required for thinking. Isn't that cool? You can have mathematical thinking, or you can have visual thinking. The HBO movie shows that very, very clearly. Now, this is research that's in my visual thinking book, and some of this research is also in the autistic brain, that object visualizing, like me, the non-mathematician, and the mathematical thinking are very different. It's pattern thinking versus picture thinking. I also will think in analogies, like my favorite little funsy magazine's Aviation Week. That's a field I wanted to be in, but I couldn't do the math. So I was reading an article about a new airplane engine, and it was made with a special alloy. An alloy is a mixture of different types of metals in just the right ratio. And I see a bag of red mill flour. I'm gluten-free. Now, if you just do gluten-free with potato starch, it tastes like sandpaper. Now, to get it so it doesn't taste like sandpaper, you have to use an alloy of different starches. You might have pea starch, tapioca starch, flaxseed starch, just the right ratio of starches. They are both alloys. An alloy of metals or an alloy of starch sources. Yeah, you can see how an airplane engine could be related to a bag of red mill flour. Yeah, that's how visual thinking works. It's a different way of problem solving. Now, I like analogies. So my visual memories are stored back here. The frontal cortex finds them. So to use an old-fashioned analogy, the card catalogs the frontal cortex, the books are in the library. Let's say I use a modern analogy. ChatGPT's here, and some giant data center. But the problem with ChatGPT, it's an aggregator. And I think it's very, very important to go back to primary sources. So in my livestock handling class, we're supposed to do something that goes beyond the subject of the class. I want them to pick out a subject and behavior they're really interested in and find me 2 journal articles off of 4 different databases. I want them to learn how to look up primary sources, PubMed, Web of Science, Google Scholar, and Elsevier. Those are your 4 databases. Students don't know those databases exist. No, I think even now it's even more important. You've got to learn how to look up primary sources. And when I was in college, my history professor explained to me that Encyclopedia Britannica is an aggregator. That is not a primary source, and this is not a very well-designed water thing. Now I just spilled all my water. But that's an aggregator. That is not a primary source. Okay, and a lot of people are mixtures, but one type of thinking tends to predominate. You tend to lean more to the mathematical route and patterns, more the word route, or more the visual thinking route. Now, it turns out I have a gigantic visual thinking circuit. Interesting enough, the dog has a gigantic fiber optic circuit of axons that goes from the olfactory bulb to the visual cortex. Think of that. Smell pictures? Isn't that trippy? That was some research that was done at Cornell. There's another picture of my big visual thinking circuits. But right now, the really smart people I worked with that invented equipment, they're all retired. Yeah, we're having a real problem. There's a lot of specialized equipment we don't make. We have to import it from Europe, not China, Europe. It goes back to their educational system. Because in 9th grade, you can go tech or college. We tend to stick our nose up at tech. So how do different kinds of minds design a planet, for example? Well, the visual thinkers, they're going to make some real fantastic planets. The science students, the more mathematical, they'll draw you a boring picture of the planet and tell you about the atmosphere. And the verbal thinkers don't know what to do with it. But the worst thing about the verbal thinkers is no planning. The art students and the math types, they had a lot of planning. But verbal thinkers have big, broad concepts. Oh, we got to make this classroom work for everybody. I start thinking about specific things. We got to do something about the LED lighting that flickers. We got to fix that. You're going to have problems with people with head injuries, people with autism, dyslexia. See those lights flicker, and that's going to be a problem. See, that's something specific I can do to fix the classroom. See, I don't think in abstractions. Concepts are formed by putting different specific examples into categories. Okay, a lot of autistic people, black and white thinking. Okay, spitting on the sidewalk's not robbing a bank. Okay, I can categorize bad things sort of by, degrees of badness. Gum on the teacher's chair, that's robbing a bank is way worse than that. Different approaches to problems. Object visualizers see risk. And one of the things I talk about in my visual thinking book is a Fukushima disaster. A visual thinker would have prevented that. It's not a very good idea when you live next to the sea, but it's super important emergency cooling pump in a non-waterproof basement. It has an electric motor. All I need to know about that reactor is that pump doesn't run when I need it. Guess what happens? It melts down. I can't design a reactor, but maybe you need me for the safety systems. You see, the mathematician didn't see the water coming over the seawall during the tsunami and flooding the basement. Simple, watertight doors. It would not have happened. Old-fashioned, simple, watertight doors. That's why you need us non-mathematicians. Verbal thinkers, more linear, more organized. Visual thinkers tend to jump around. More bottom-up thinkers, where you take specific examples to form concepts. So as a veterinarian, for example, as they build up their clinical experience, they go, yeah, I know what's wrong with that dog. I'll do one test to confirm. Rather than going on a giant fishing expedition and doing just gobs and gobs of tests. See, that's kind of how they're doing it now. Okay, back in the 1800s when the patent office was first started, visual thinkers ruled. All of the stuff that was patented was mechanical. And now I'm seeing a fascinating exhibit at the Institute of Anesthesiology. And you know what the first anesthesia machine was made out of? An old-fashioned gray box gas meter for a house. Yes, I'm serious. I know where that came from. That would have been done by a visual thinker. Yep, and it worked with an anesthesia machine. Okay, that's what I call clever engineering. You have all these people in the shop inventing mechanical things, and the degreed engineers will go, well, they just build equipment. No, they invent, design, and patent equipment. I worked with them for 25 years. I worked in industrial construction for 25 years, supervising installation of my systems. And I found all these shop people. They can't do any higher math, but you ought to see their patent portfolio. They were autistic, dyslexic, and right now they say, well, special ed kids can't take shop. In my generation, special ed kids owned the shops. And I am saying it absolutely serious. And I'm seeing these kids not getting launched. You know, last night we went to a nice restaurant. I had a delicious trout there, and beside it was a shop that sells custom wheels for fancy cars. That's the kind of place where maybe an autistic visual thinker needs to work. I see that shop and I go, that might be a door. Get creative about where I'm going to put them for work. They're not launching into the world of work. And one of the things we need to do, grandfathers come up to me all the time. They find out they're autistic, they'll have paper routes at age 11. Yes, we need to do paper route substitutes, church volunteer jobs, walking the neighbor's dog. They got to start learning working for somebody outside the family. They got to learn that young. Okay, state-of-the-art 3D printing coming from Europe. This is the inside of the state-of-the-art chip-making machine, export controlled. It's from Holland. Why? Because in 9th grade, they can go tech or university. This is from Holland, a high-wage country. Other equipment that comes from Europe are big stationary mixers for making the big pre-stressed beams, like for building bridges. Half of that equipment's coming out of Italy and Germany. This is all mechanical things. Hay harvesting equipment. Hay harvesting equipment too big for them to use in Germany. I couldn't believe it. I'm going to have to get some more water. This is really a very badly designed water holder that's on a slant. Man, I just move around, but at least it's not spilling on the computer. That's the important thing. And it has mirrors in it from the Zeiss microscope company from Germany. Now, we still know how to build a beef plant because there's one person that can't do algebra that builds beef plants. He started out with a little tiny shop and grew. But if you want a pork processing plant or chicken processing plant, you've got to get the equipment from Holland or Italy. Yeah, we're not making a lot of this stuff anymore. And it goes back to the educational system. And I worked with some of these people, and they were super smart. The fabric for the Mars rover came from Europe. High-tech mechanical looms. And that's me standing in the middle of the Steve Jobs Theater screaming, we don't make it anymore. Structural glass walls from Germany and Italy, and a carbon fiber roof from Dubai. And they had a crystal elevator that went up like this. It was broken. I really, really wanted to try the crystal elevator, but I couldn't. We paid the price for taking hands-on classes out of the schools. I think it's great that kids like to build with Legos, but the big problem is they're not graduating to tools. I was using tools in 2nd grade, hammer, pliers, screwdriver, handsaw in 5th grade. I did some consulting for Bechtel Corporation, the world's largest construction company, and they're really good mechanical people are retiring out. How do you replace them? We got to teach little kids that tools are fun. Okay, a lot of community colleges are putting the trades back in, but we got to hook these kids young. And please, let's not have calculus and algebra as prerequisites. You will take out your very best people. I worked for every single major meat company. And what I found is the non-mathematicians designed all the mechanical things in the beef plant, and we need the mathematician, the degree engineer for the refrigeration. Make sure the roof doesn't collapse or the wind doesn't blow it off. That's where you're going to need some math. This is a great program in Colorado for teaching mechanics to autistic adults, and they have contracts with dealers. I think I'm going to have to get some more water. I have to drink a lot of water. Well, this, all right, let's put it in this one here. All right, this might be safer, but this is not a very well-designed lectern, that's for sure. It's a very pretty lectern, but it's not very functional. Okay, my grandfather was a co-inventor of the autopilot for airplanes, MIT-trained mathematical engineer. He worked with an autistic guy who came up with this crazy new idea for an autopilot. Instead of connecting the plane's controls right to the magnetic compass, and of course the plane was doing this, they had a totally new idea. And aviation goes, oh, this is stupid. So they tinkered and tinkered and tinkered in a rented loft. And unfortunately, the stolen version was in every warplane during World War II. They needed a lawyer. This is where you need the verbal thinker. Our educational screen we're screening out the object visualizers. I cannot do algebra. I don't think I could pass an algebra course today, because if I can't convert a memory to like a little phone picture, I can't remember it. And I've heard algebra teachers complain about that. Yet, and I also talk to shop teachers, these kids don't know how to measure. I had a student in my class who had never used a ruler in their lives, and they have to spend 2 weeks just teaching basic measurement. I had no problems with that. This airplane is owned by somebody who absolutely cannot do algebra. He builds beef plants. Yeah, and he's got all new equipment on his job sites too. This is a hydraulic system that he built. You know, this is a power pack that run an entire beef floor. If you're into hydraulics, this is like a thing of absolute beauty. And this is the under construction center track restrainer system. It's a piece of equipment I developed for the beef industry. The person who built the first one was autistic, undiagnosed. And he was very autistic. And you ought to see his patent portfolio. They are not getting replaced. Big Legos, much more fun than the little ones. Yeah. So how do we get kids interested? There's ways that kids can observe construction safely. In fact, at the airport yesterday, a mom and their about 4-year-old were watching through a glass wall, remodeling the inside of the terminal. You know, there's places you can go where they can watch it safely, because to get kids interested, they've got to see things. And I think it's important seeing real things. We got to get them off the phones. Oh yeah, some high school students, after figuring out how to defeat those phone patches with magnets off of Amazon, discovered they actually liked being without phones, and now they just put them in shoe bags and they just leave them there. Okay, object visualizer will do the plant layout. Lay out all the equipment in the factory, maybe a 1-semester class in drafting. And a lot of the drafting now is terrible. They're leaving out all the detail. And then we need the mathematician for the boilers, refrigeration, make sure the roof doesn't either fall in on snow or blow off. Working on my visual thinking book, I wrote the first drafts, kind of disorganized. Betsy, my verbal co-author, smoothed them out. So that's the two kinds of thinkers working together in collaboration, recognizing their different kinds of skills. Architects make a building pretty. The mathematicians make sure it doesn't fall down, break. 20% of the people I worked with that owned large shops inventing equipment, big patent portfolio, mechanical devices. With autistic, dyslexic, or had ADHD. Special ed kids owned the shops in my generation. And I'm not saying that as a joke. And we're screening out some of our best veterinarians. I am very, very concerned about that. Best doctors for people, too, especially on surgery. We're screening them out. These grandparents come up to me all the time, find out they're autistic, they all have decent jobs. Learn how to work at an early age. This is where we're really failing. Getting so hung up on the autism, hung up on academics, not learning any work skills. Now, there's some classes some jobs I want to avoid, what I call chaos jobs. Super crazy lunch takeout window at McDonald's, let's avoid that. Putting them on a delivery route downtown New York, well, we don't go there. Chaos at Christmas time, yeah, let's avoid those kind of jobs. They don't work, but they need to be working before they graduate from high school. The thing I want to ask you is what would happen to some of the great innovators of the past if they were in today's educational system? Well, what happened to little Mikey here? Dirty, filthy, bratty, 12-year-old dropped out of school, exposed to great art because the churches were commissioning it. And he had stone cutting tools. So it starts out with exposure, then mentoring, really important. Exposure, then mentoring. And the other issue where people on the spectrum have got to clean it up is hygiene. There's a scene in the HBO movie where they slam the deodorant down. That happened. You know, in the 70s, we had these gunky roll-ons that I hated. Now you've got solid stick, you don't even feel them. But you got to clean it up. That one's non-negotiable. Okay. Steve Jobs, probably on the spectrum, bullied in school. It's now official. Bill Gates is on the spectrum. He has a book. You know what both of us had to do to learn how to talk to people? Both of us sold stuff for charity. 8 and 9 years old, we had to go up, knock on doors and sell stuff. We also had to be hosts and hostesses at parents' parties. That taught you how to talk to people. Yeah, we need to be doing that. Einstein, no speech till age 3. Thomas Edison, probably on the spectrum. He had a great mentor that taught him all about the telegraph, and he was selling newspapers at 10 years old. That's learning how to work. How about this guy? You got to work on your car's vision system. I looked into 2 crashes where it spooked just like a horse at weird shadows. I went back and I looked at the videos, just like a horse, and it spooked, and there was no way the driver could have stopped it. Yeah, you're going to have some LiDAR, that will see solid objects. A Nobel Prize winner was 50% more likely to have an arts and crafts hobby. That's another reason for not taking the hands-on classes out. Now the thing is, here's some tips for working with minds that are different. Let's avoid rapid multitasking jobs, and if they have to clean the coffee machine, give them a pilot's checklist. If you just go yak, 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 I can't remember the steps. Write it down in a pilot's checklist format. That will save a ton of jobs. Also, teachable moments. When I criticized some welding on my first job, I said it looked like pigeon do. I was pulled into the plant engineer's office. Thank you, Harley. Great job, coach. He said, you have to apologize for that rude talk. And Whitey the welder is up in the cafeteria, and you're going up there right now and apologizing. I didn't tell him the welding was wonderful, but I apologized for the rude talk. He told me exactly what I had to do. You can't say rude to colleagues. That's too vague. They need very precise, told exactly what to do. So if it's a little kid, I stir my drink with my finger, I put my finger in the mashed potatoes, it will go like that. You say, use the fork or use the spoon. Give the instruction instead of screaming, no. What's the ultimate goal of education? Where is a student 10 years after high school? I was doing my first big projects that was shown in an HBO movie. Everybody thought I was stupid and that I was going to go absolutely nowhere because I was so stupid, because I could not do higher math. Yeah, I wanted to prove that I was not stupid. And then I did this drawing in 1978, the dipping vat projects. And when I got done with this drawing, I remember looking at it and I go, I guess I'm not stupid. And a lot of the drawings that I see today, done with computer-aided drafting, don't have detail in there. They're leaving out detail, like showing exactly where the reinforcement rods would be positioned. That's the drawing I sent to Cargill back in the late 80s. I designed the front end of every Cargill beef plant in North America. My center track restrainer system is in every big beef plant. That's doing pretty good for no math. I know how to do my arithmetic. But we got to look at some of these educational requirements. We are screening out way too many veterinarians, way too many and doctors, medical doctors. See all the detail on that? Yeah, and then the side views, and cross sections, I had all the rebar drawn in there. You might wonder why curved. As you come on around the bend, going back to where they came from. That's a natural behavior cattle. So when I first started out, I thought I could fix everything with equipment. I thought I could build a self-managing cattle handling facility. That's BS. Because I had a lot of this equipment out in the early 90s. Half my clients tore it up and wrecked it. Then I taught the McDonald's Corporation how to use my very simple scoring system to evaluate the plants. And we had to make them repair a lot of stuff. I'm very proud of it. 74 plants, only 3 had to build new things. We made some of the older facilities work. It's amazing what repairs does, supervision and training does, and some non-slip flooring does. 3 plant managers got removed. Call that a manager-ectomy. The top has got to get behind doing things right. So you need both the equipment and the management. And a big mistake a lot of engineers make is they think they can do it all with equipment. Yes, and now we're going to have artificial intelligence. I think it's already getting agency. It's already concerned about being turned off already. So let's say it's in one data center. Is it going to clone itself in another data center? So if I cut the power to that data center, is it in another data center? It's capable of lying in certain situations. Yes, I'm concerned. You know what really concerns me about AI? The copyright owners, in fact, my book publishers have come to me and want me to sign an agreement to sue Claude and sue ChatGPT. Now, if we screen them out of all the copyrighted stuff, all that's left is dumpster diving. That is going to be a problem, a very, very big problem. Now, where AI is going to shine in drug discovery, it's going to shine on that. It's not allowed in the dumpster when it does that. Drug discovery, material science, yeah, it's going to really shine on that. But I'm concerned we screen it out of too much of the good stuff. No, I won't sign those things. No, it's welcome to read my stuff. I don't care about the $3,000 I might get from that. No, it can read my stuff. I urge copyright owners, don't sign those documents, because AI is only as good as its training document. And all that's going to be left is the dumpster if you screen about all of this. There'll be some open access papers. Okay, and I sent them pictures of my projects. In other words, I sold my work rather than myself. I was freelance. This is the portfolio that I sent to the Cargill Corporation. I just got to watch my time here, make sure we're leaving some. Oh, we're going to have to finish up. Time for some questions. There are texts on there. I'm not reading them now. That's a replica of my project that was done for the HBO movie. Visual thinking shown absolutely accurately, and the projects were duplicated off original drawings. I just love that. In fact, there's a new movie called An Open Door. It's kind of the sequel. It talks about teaching. And I think teaching is really super important. Had a really nice brochure. Had to be black and white back then. Color printing, you had to put it through the press 4 times back when I started in the 70s. And then this is a job I did in '83. They were sent this. In other words, I showed them samples of my work. Another thing I did is I wrote about it. One of my first jobs is I was livestock editor for our state magazine. I wrote about my stuff. I gave it away. Take your good intellectual property, let it go through. Let Claude and Chat have it, and let Grok have it too. Yeah, it's only as good as the training data. I want it reading some good stuff along with the dumpster diving. I don't take away the good stuff, it's going to just dumpster dive. That's not going to be pretty. I won't talk about everything's in the dumpster. It's too controversial and political. But there's a lot of crap in the dumpster. We'll just leave it at that. I'm not saying all the copyright material is good, but your higher quality material tends to be the copyrighted material. Well, we now have 15 minutes for questions. Okay, and I'll repeat the question. What was my biggest challenge to implementing the innovation? First of all, I started slowly. My career started with being livestock editor for the Arizona Farm Ranchman. I would cover the cattle feeders field day right here at the University of Arizona. And there's a scene in the HBO movie where I go up and I get the editor's card. This is where selling stuff for charity help. I had the guts to get that card. I started just writing one little column. That got me into all kinds of meetings. It got me into meetings at $500 registrations for free. And then I go up to the national editors and I start writing about things I did. I just put it out there. And people say, well, why do you publish those corral designs? Why'd you just give it away? Yeah, you want to make a change? Put your IP out there. I have plenty of consulting. And what I'm doing now with book money, speaking engagement money, I put 25 students through PhDs and Masters of Animal Science. That's what I've done with the money. And 3 of them are professors now in animal behavior. I'm really proud of that. Both Bill Gates and I were taught to give back. Yeah, and that goes back to childhood. He's put a lot of money into medical stuff, put the stuff out there, and it just started one project at a time. Those dip vets, they were in Arizona. They were at the Red River Cattle Company and McElhaney Cattle Company, which is now a 5 Rivers yard. Yep, those are where I started. And I just showed them my work. And when they came up, when Gary Oden came up to me and said, would you like to design the dip vat? I said, give me 3 weeks. I had to get help on designing a reinforced concrete tank. But I knew somebody from my meetings that I'd gone to, with my livestock editor job, they could give me an official USDA government drawing, no copyright, on the tank design. Yeah, you ask for help. Yeah, don't try to wing it. Okay, right there. Yeah. I don't know, I wouldn't worry about that. Autism is an important part of who I am. And a lot of adults who get diagnosed later in life, it's like a relief to them. Now I know why I'm different. But those people diagnosed later in life, they all launched into the workforce and have good jobs, really good jobs, not just bagging groceries or something like that. Learn how to work it. I'm seeing the label holding some of the people back in the work world. I am seeing 16-year-olds, honor students that have never gone shopping. I'm seeing honor students graduating from college that end up in the basement. They're not making the transition to work. And then I worked with whole shops full of special ed kids. Boy, they could build stuff, the visual thinkers. And then Silicon Valley, I mean, all the mathematical thinkers. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. You see, the problem you got with autism is you're going from Einstein to somebody who can't dress themselves. Now, we've always had the very severe. We used to just call them mentally retarded before. And it's all now lumped together. It's not precise. It's not like being diagnosed with tuberculosis or strep. That is precise. It's not a precise diagnosis. Okay, right there.
You mentioned schools screening out visual thinkers for not doing math well. You mentioned
Especially the higher math. None of the people I worked with could do higher math, but you ought to see the stuff they built.
yeah, and that there are some like tech and vocational options that all.
Yeah, but the problem is on some of the technical vocational options, they're requiring calculus and algebra. You will screen out your best factory maintenance people. I can tell you that right now. We no longer have the weird guy in the shop who can fix anything. They've also, another stupid thing that all the companies did was closing down in-house engineering, selling off their shop equipment. Dumbest things they ever did. That was done 25 years ago. In the short run, it paid. But now, as all the shops are retiring out, the one shop that's left ripping them off, equipment for 4 times the price. That's going on right now. Yeah.
Outside of those kind of like educational systems, are there other sites that are either screening?
You can go right in the back door. I saw that shop that sells wheels right near the restaurant we went to. That's a door. Yeah, use it. You never know where you're going to find places that can open the door, kind of unique places. And for the visual thinkers, I'm going to really push the mechanical route. That's how you get rid of the video game addiction. And they're going to find that motors are a lot more interesting. You see, a lot of people don't see the doors. I saw the doors. I knew that certain people could get me into things. I made my own internship at the Swift plant in Tolleson. It's still there. That's my alma mater. Oh, there between, down on Buckeye Road in Tolleson, Arizona. And I met a lady that liked my hand-embroidered shirt. This is computer embroidered. And she got me in there. And what got me in there, also my press pass. Yep. That article, working for that magazine was really important. I worked for them for 6 years. Okay, right there. What? What gives me hope? Well, I've done some things that I can, some things I think have been successful, developed a lot of equipment. I've written guidelines for the meat industry that are used around the world. One thing, I'm very project-oriented, and we will not discuss politics because that would hurt my things I'm interested in. Right now, one of my big interests, and that's why I wrote the visual thinking book, that was the gigantic COVID project, is I'm very concerned we're screening out our visual thinkers, our non-mathematicians. And it's a different kind of thought, and we need them. We need these people. Clinical skills, both in veterinary and human medicine, is sensory-based thinking. So you listen with a stethoscope, then you visualize, okay, you took anatomy class, then you visualize what's wrong. It's sensory-based. There's heart doctors today, and some of my friends have gone to them, people that are my age, that think a stethoscope or any of those clinical things are unnecessary. I think that's a gigantic problem. We're losing skills that we really need. Okay, right there. You're autistic and ADHD, don't let it define you. All right, the first thing is, what are you good at? Because the thing about somebody with a label, you tend to be really good at one thing, like I'm good at visual thinking, terrible at math. That skills tend to be more uneven. So what are you good at?
So it's funny, but whenever they tested like what kind of thinker I was, I scored very high in all 3 areas.
You scored high in all 3 areas? Okay, then you're kind of a mixture.
Yeah.
Be lucky, you're really lucky.
So the thing is, I'm a member of Men's Lab, and I'm able to do so many things, but then with basics, like I can't even jump rope.
All right, well, I'm not physically, I never went into sports. I could never get that good at it. Autistics tend to be klutzy. Special ed kids tend to be klutzy. But that's not going to affect somebody going into, like Bill Gates at Microsoft. He had to do baseball, and he was terrified of it. Now, getting him out into scouting, that was the good thing. His mother pushed him, but the baseball was scary for him. And no, so forget about sports. Okay, that's not going to be your thing. But the thing is, I tell all students, regardless of what profession you're going, try different stuff. Help professors with their research. Get into jobs, summer internships and things that are career relevant. It's very important to learn what you love. But it's also very important to say, I tried that and I hated it. All right, let's take veterinary medicine. I tell every student, shadow a veterinarian. Some people like the medicine, they hate dealing with the clients. But okay, that's something that you got to find out. Try lots of different stuff. I'd say get on your department's website, look up what the different professors do, go read some of their papers. There's all kinds of doors, and go into other departments. So that, what field are you in?
I'm computer science and psychology.
Computer science and psychology? And then we got to figure out, also, another reason, hands-on jobs. Okay, you're not going to spay a dog anytime soon with a computer. That's not happening anytime soon. The hands-on jobs are AI-proof. You got to figure out a niche you can get in. Right now, they're paying jillions of dollars to people to train AI. Up to 40% of the coding now is done by AI. Entry-level coding jobs, they are becoming obsolete. So you've got to kind of, you want to get into something. My cattle handling equipment was a niche. And it was a niche in the beginning. Back in the 70s, nobody else was doing it. It was a good thing to go into. So I could make myself specialized in something. I mean, people need cattle handling facilities. So I made myself good. I made myself a good writer for that magazine, and I made myself good at my design work. Sell your work. Forget about the interview stuff. Just show your work. That's how I sold jobs. I just showed off drawings, showed off pictures. All right, let's not throw that word executive functioning around. I hate that word. What is the specific problem?
So, like, time management.
Time management, then let's start getting checklists. Let's start getting checklists. Aviation requires the pilots to use a checklist on every flight. Every single flight's required. Let's take this guy's question right here.
Like, I think with some, like, for me, sometimes I could almost hide it to some extent, like, it'd be sort of semi-presentable. But, like, how do you not lose yourself when it comes to stuff like masking if you can't mask? Because that's a balance.
Okay, the masking thing, well, first of all, just basic politeness, and everybody can learn how to do that. Hygiene, you got to clean it up. Now, where I have problems is following really fast chit-chat conversation. I have problems hearing it in noisy restaurants. That can get really fatiguing. But a rude, filthy, dirty slob, that's something where, yeah, you're going to have to clean it up. There's some conforming you got to do. What I see myself, my identity is career. Career comes first for me. I look back all the stuff I've designed, things I've done. The other stuff's not it's part of me, but it's not as important as career. Okay, what field are you in?
I work in the horse racing industry.
Horse racing industry? What do you do?
I'm trying to be a racetrack announcer.
A racetrack announcer? Okay, but that's something where you can build up a following, and people are going to want the real person doing it, and not a robot. You know, that's a niche. Make yourself really good at it. And then you might be, a lot of racetracks might want to use you for announcing. Okay, that is a niche. Yeah, go for it. And I'm really good at announcing racetracks. And people like those really good sports announcers. All right, let's see how we're doing on the time here. Okay, we still got a few minutes left. Maybe you have a question up there on the balcony. And if you do, come forward, because otherwise I can't hear you. Yeah, you're going to have to come forward because I can't possibly hear you. They don't seem to have a mic that rove around. Yeah, okay. How did I get over the fear of advocating myself? This got back to selling candy for charity when I was 8. And when my parents had the parties, I think this is a real 50s thing. Kids had to put their good clothes on. I had to greet the guests at the door. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Wood. We weren't allowed to use their first names. We knew it, Holty and Vivi. We weren't allowed to use their first names, take their coat. And I learned to talk to people. And there's that scene in the movie where I go up and I get the editor's card. That scene is true. Selling candy for charity? I think all kids need to be doing that. Bill Gates sold some other stuff, but he had to sell stuff for charity. That taught you how to, and the parents didn't do it. I mean, I see them selling Girl Scout cookies now, mom's doing all the talking. No, the kids got to do the talking. Mom needs to leave them and go grocery shopping, and the kids got to learn to talk to people. Also, advocate for yourself. You see, I don't think in that kind of abstraction. Okay. Here's a big mistake I see a lot of students make. They're failing a class, and they don't ask for help soon enough. And this has gotten especially bad since COVID. When I failed my first math quiz, I got help right away. Ask for help quickly if you get in trouble. I'm not going to call it advocating. I'm going to just say, get help before you flunk out of this course. And that's what I did. Yep, maybe you need to just go out and sell some stuff for charity. And I'm realizing for both me and Bill Gates just how important that was. Teach me how to talk to people. I think we'll do one more question and then we'll wrap it up. And okay, you've already had a question. Let's get somebody else. All right, maybe I need to pick somebody. Okay, right back. Okay, right there in the red thing there. Right there with the sunglasses on your head. Oh, okay, somebody right back here, put their hand up. Okay, come forward so I can hear you. And then I'll repeat okay, I can hear you. How do you find your specific traits? You gotta go do a lot of stuff. The only way you can find out what you're good at is try a bunch of different things. And I was really good at drawing. Terrible at math. The first thing I'd ask is, what's your best subjects in school? What were your worst subjects in school? That might be the first question I'd ask. The mathematical kids tend to gravitate towards the math. That was not me. I was gravitated towards art. Art and mechanical go together. They go together. Well, you both see how to do something. Okay, the other big problem we have is kids are not getting exposed to enough tools and mechanical things, because they got asked by this big construction company, how do we replace our skilled craftspeople? Let's not call them blue collar. I managed to get them to stop doing that, so I think it's important. These people have really, really high-end skills. But you got to go out and try a lot of stuff too, to find out what you're good at. And we're not exposing kids to enough mechanical things. I mean, the amount of broken elevators I'm finding, elevators with expired inspection certificates, that's something I'm checking as I'm going around. All right, what do you think you're good at? Wait a minute, I can't hear you, what you're talking about. I'm sorry. You're good at drawing? All right, well, that's visual thinking. If you're good at drawing, that's visual thinking. Let's say you're good at like fixing cars and stuff, that is going to be visual thinking. If you're acing your math classes and are bored in them, then you may be the math thinker. And then your word thinker gravitates towards a lot of word-based things. You tend to gravitate towards the stuff you're good at if you're exposed to enough different things. Animal what? Animal body language? Well, yeah, the visual thinkers are often very good at picking up on that. They know the dog is getting angry or the dog is happy. The visual thinkers are often very good with animals. And one of the big problems we've got, stockmanship doesn't get enough credit. What I'm finding with a lot of stuff, people want the magic thing, a drug, a computer, a new corral system. I call it wanting the thing more than wanting the management. And when I first started, I made a mistake that a lot of engineers make, thinking they could build the magic thing that would replace management. That is rubbish. You've got to, because I had a lot of equipment torn up and wrecked before we started the McDonald's audit, and the first thing we had to do was fix all the broken stuff. Like they had a really bad score on stunning, it was broken equipment. You're gonna have to put that on a documented maintenance program and keep that stunning tool maintained. That's management. Okay, well, maybe we'll just end it there, and I just want to thank everybody for coming.
Thank you very much, Temple, for this very inspiring talk. And please join us for some refreshments, and Temple will stick around if you have more questions. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.